Welcome back, everyone, to Open Line. Glad you were with us. We have with us Ron Kennedy tonight. He is the Deputy Chief for Heritage Promotions. He is with the National Sons of Confederate Veterans, all the way down in Louisiana. He's joining us via Zoom. There he is in his home. Thank you again for being with us, Mr. Kennedy. We kind of set the table for the discussion in the first segment, and we have a bunch of calls. So I'm just going to start taking them in the order we got them. Let's go to Joe. Hello, Joe.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay, well, I just want to kind of brief on the history, too. Is Mr. Kennedy's clear in his understanding, that Southern lives matter, and Americans today, they throw out numbers like 400 years of slavery and nonsense like that, but most of the northern colonies banned slavery before we even became the United States. As a matter of fact, President Thomas Jefferson actually banned the import of slaves in 1804. So the United States was inflicted with slavery from the British Empire. It wasn't something that the United States created. This was all inflicted on us. Unfortunately, the Confederacy caused a national threat to our republic, and that was the disappointment of it, because I think he's kind of right. In the northern states, after we became a country, it did allow this slavery to continue in the South, and that really separated us. Unfortunately, I'm not on his side with Confederate monuments. In the same way, I'm not on the side of the New York, like the state of New York has a monument to Benedict Arnold. I mean, he was a traitor, and so was the Confederacy. They were treasonous. They should have, all the leaders in the Confederacy should have been tried for treason against the Union.
So you don't think we should have monuments because they were trying to leave the Union, and that was essentially treason?
Right. So, I mean, if somebody wants to have them in their house, that's fine, and good on them.
Okay.
But,
all right, well, let's ask him about that. All right, Joe, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, what do you think of that?
Well, I think he raises a great point, and I'm glad he did. Thank you for listening and for your question. The question about treason: are these Confederate soldiers traitors to the United States of America? Well, first of all, if that's the case, then West Point is a traitor. West Point is guilty of treason. Why? Because the very first textbook used at West Point to teach the Constitution was written by Judge William Rawle. He was an abolitionist. He was from Pennsylvania, but his textbook, A View of the Constitution, on chapter 31 of the 25, I think is chapter 32 of the 1829 edition, it's titled Of the Permanency of the Union, and it gives the policy, the procedure of which a state may secede from the Union. Wow. Yes, the federal government taught the right of secession, and which is not unusual. Everyone accepted it at that point in time before Lincoln and the Republican Party took over. But and he also has a chapter in his book on the Constitution about treason, a whole chapter dedicated to treason. Now,
but the notion that they were fighting against the United States, and they wanted to leave and kind of make the United States less than what it was, is that not treason?
No. What you're saying is empire building. You're wanting to maintain control of a geographical territory and a people for the benefit not of the people that's being invaded, but for the benefit of the people who are backing the invasion. There is a treason against the very principle of what? Not the Constitution, but the Declaration of Independence. It says we all have a right to a government that is ordered upon the consent of the governed. And when that consent is no longer worthy, we have the right to withdraw that consent. That's in the Declaration of Independence, sir. No, the South our Southern ancestors were not traitors, they were patriots.
Do you hope in this day and in 2020, do you hope that one day there is a separation? Do you, or are you happy with the way things are right now? Do you hope one day the South is able to, I guess, secede, or are you happy with the way things are right now?
I am definitely not happy with the way things are right now. And if you'll look at a map of the counties of United States of America, you'll see the vast majority of the people in the counties voted red. They're not happy with the way things are. And if we're not careful, secession will break out, but it won't be the old-fashioned states seceding from the Union. It's going to be the red counties seceding from the blue counties. You're going to see, and it's not Southerners that are saying this. This is Northern liberal politicians saying there's a coming civil war. Well, we better start acting.
Is that what you would like? I mean, is that what you would like?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Not a coming civil war. Now, do I want to see the time in which we, the people of the sovereign state, can make determinations for ourselves and not the Supreme Court? I'll give you an example. This past week, the Supreme Court of the federal government told Louisiana, we don't have the right to decide when life begins and whether or not that life deserves the protection of the state. Now, what founding fathers would have voted for the Constitution had they known that one day the federal government that they were creating would be able to tell a state that, nope, you can't protect the life of the unborn?
All right.
It wouldn't have happened.
Let's go back to the phones here, and we're talking with Ron Kennedy. He is with the National Sons of Confederate Veterans. He's joining us from Louisiana. Let's go to Corey now on line 2. Hello, Corey. Go right ahead.
Hey, Ben, you doing all right?
Yes, doing all right. Go ahead.
Doing good. All right. I mean, I believe racists already have enough of a platform, so I'm not really even going to direct anything towards him. Let's go ahead and acknowledge what these monuments are glorifying and what their intent is. It's an ideology-based reassurance that white nationalism and white supremacy is still alive. And when those come down, they will feel like it is not their country anymore. Let's go ahead and acknowledge the fact that people like him and people who are like him and like Trump and who support Trump, they are the only ones that can deem it necessary when they can fight back. When they want to take up arms against a tyrannical government, they will find it necessary. When they can't go get a haircut, they'll take guns to the Capitol buildings. But when you have communities out here that have been oppressed for 400 years, and when they fight back, listen to what people like him say. Because the same people fighting back have been under rule and under severe oppression, systemic and generational oppression from people with an ideology like his. So he's not seeing a monument come down. He's seeing his ideology come down. He's seeing his ideology being confronted full force in a way that he's not experienced. Because he might be older, but he's not old enough to actually experience a population of people fighting back for their basic human rights to live.
All right, let's talk about that. Corey, thank you. So Corey is saying this is more than monuments. They represent white nationalism, white supremacy, and as long as they stay up, that is perpetuated. It's still alive. What do you say to what he said there?
Well, it's very interesting that he has the support of the monopolistic media behind him. And what he says is probably, if you were to take a poll of Americans, a lot of Americans believe that. Well, why? That's the only thing they've heard of late. Our side never gets out. Our side of the story is never told. But he speaks of ideology. The ideology that he seems to be promoting is the ideology of postmodernism, in which you attack and destroy the very foundations of Western Christian civilization and replace it. Now, you just don't destroy it just for no reason. You've got an ideological idea of what you want to replace it with. And it's something probably more along the lines of a enforced equality of outcome by some type of a socialist style government. That I'm opposed to, but that has nothing to do with the Sons of Confederate Veterans. These monuments were put up to honor our ancestors. My great-grandfather wore the gray. A yeoman farmer wore the gray. He was in a rifle pit down on the Yazoo River during the siege of Vicksburg when we sunk the CSS Cairo. The USS Cairo.
Do you believe the races are equal? You read some of these old things that were said here in Mississippi when they seceded and others, that clearly wasn't the belief. Today, do you believe the races are equal?
Well, first of all, let's don't just pick on Mississippi. When Plessy versus Ferguson was passed in by the federal Supreme Court, the federal government made Jim Crow legal, not the Confederate Supreme Court, and it used a Massachusetts law as the premise, as the foundation for it. And the Supreme Court judge was from Michigan, not Mississippi. So let's don't pick on Mississippi. By the way, every federal Supreme Court justice voted in favor of Jim Crow except one. He was a Southerner. His family had owned slaves. So let's be careful how we throw around that these Southerners, us Southerners, are endemically evil. We're not. It's not true. But that ideology, that postmodern ideology, is taught in schools. It permeates our society. It's a part of every journalist training. So naturally, they have a one world view.
Well, I wanted to give you a chance to respond, because he basically said he called you a racist, and I wanted to give you a chance to say, do you believe both the races are equal?
Oh, well, I think that's an absurd question. It shouldn't even be asked. It should be presumed in America today in 2020 that everyone believes that, unless someone says otherwise, in which case you want to get away from that guy as fast as you can. I mean, it's just, yeah, and that's one of the problems. White supremacy or racial supremacy is a marker. You can put that marker down. When you pass that marker, you've gone too far to the right. You better back off, brother. That's too. That has led to some real bad things in a recent history.
All right, we're going to take a break. We have a bunch of calls here. Sorry. Okay, well, good. I'm glad that you answered that. Okay, we'll take a break. I'll be back right after this.